What is going on, Big Slong Gamers? It is Benser, and today we're going to be going over Cold War bosses and why they are the best in terms of the COD Zombies installments. If you haven't already, leave a like, subscribe, all that cool nonsense. You know how all this goes, and check out the links in the description, all that cool nonsense as well. And if you subscribe to me, I will give you, the big homie, a shout out. And other than that, gamers, let's get into it. Now, first we have the Megaton, and the Megaton is actually a fairly interesting boss itself. It's actually one of the few bosses that has an actual backstory and a history behind it. I mean, overall, the whole story of Cold War, it's a little confusing, but the Megaton is because of a, Russian group who went into this, group, the machine area, and then, he had to sacrifice his family, and then the whole Easter egg's basically based about this guy, and hence why we have the Megaton. I mean, these things are actually a fairly decent boss. I mean, I could even compare them to even a Margwa if I really wanted to. I mean, they are really unique, and also they split into two. They have two lives. Not many bosses have that, especially just in video games in general, but these are the one. This is the boss, I should say, that stands out, at least in Cold War Zombies alone. I mean, they are fairly, decent. They're not extremely hard, but they are definitely a challenge. It's not something you want to play around with and just kind of like goof off and, get slapped around by these things, because they can charge you and they will hit you very hardly. I mean, overall, these things can destroy armor, destroy health within one hit. I mean, I have 150 health right there. He drops you down to 25. He also has a ranged attack as well, kind of opposite of his, up close, swipe attack. The Megaton split bombers and also the regular Megatons act the same, but have different health variables. I mean, he can shoot, he can hit you. Get really up close to these things, it's not going to be a very good time. If you don't have armor or jug, you probably will die, especially on those later rounds. He will one hit you. You have to make sure you have to jug. You have jug, and keep just on your toes overall. This boss is actually a really decent one and not too hard, and hence why, it's one of the good bosses. Now, you might be wondering, how does this pertain to anything related to any of the other zombie games? Well, in previous zombie games, we've had some bosses that were really easy. I mean, Black Ops 3, those Hellhounds. Black Ops 2, we had the Origins Panzer, which we can all agree is very irritating, overpowered, all that nonsense. But the Megaton, Bomber, and Splitter, they are relatively fairly decently leveled zombies. I mean, they aren't extremely difficult, but if you aren't careful, they are going to be a pain, and all that stuff I said before. But these things are great, and one of my favorites, to be honest. They have to be within my top 5 for bosses, just in general, not even just in Cold War Zombies, because personally I believe that these are the best Cold War Zombie bosses, hands down. I mean, Disciple's cool, all that, but this is like the perfect ideology for a boss. It shouldn't be too hard, shouldn't be too easy, gets the job done. You can actually get some really good rewards from him as well, so if you're wasting bullets, it ain't that bad. Now we have the Mimic, and this is definitely one of the most interesting bosses we've ever had in COD Zombies, just in general. Now, in Cold War, they act as, well, a prop. They mimic things, and they will pop out at you and try to attack you. They'll do this weird kissing attack, later, but, we'll get into that later. But they act as, like, Simtexes, war machines, chopper gunners. It's kind of unfortunate how little they do with the Mimic besides Outbreak with the large chest. They actually do look very alike. They're actually literally identical, so when you get this thing popped out, it might annoy you, but nonetheless, it is something different and unique. I know Cold War is plagued with remastered maps, but one thing we all can agree with is that the original bosses in the game itself are actually really original and different. I mean, there's a couple remakes which we aren't going to be exactly going over, but just in Cold War in particular, the Mimic has got to be one of the coolest that we've had. I mean, they are really annoying. They will grab you and smooch you and just do all these terrible things to you, and they can have a very high damage potential. I mean, overall, these things can wipe out your health. They aren't as strong as the Megatons, but they definitely can kill you if you are a little bit less than half health or a little bit over half health. In the higher rounds, they will do a lot of damage as well, so you have to make sure that you aren't really up close to them. They will destroy your armor, and if you don't have armor, you're going to be dying quite a bit to these things. They are really irritating, but they are definitely a unique addition to the game. Also, another cool thing about these, they do have some sort of a backstory to them as well. Firebase Z, if you notice that they're really only on this mount besides Outbreak for, you know, gameplay reasons. But, you know, these are old soldiers who were mutated through the Dark Ether, all that cool nonsense. You know, they were really terribly, you know, gone through. I mean, the intel goes over it, but, you know, who really listens to that? But they are really cool. I really do enjoy these types of bosses. It's a shame how they kind of didn't, you know, plan them out very well, or balance them, or, you know, make it so where like maybe they're like a power-up drop or something. That would have been a little bit more unique to see. But overall, the mimics do provide something that the other bosses don't, and that is an element of surprise to gameplay, which is, you know, something you really do need in zombies, especially when it's been running for what, 10, 12 years, something like that. Now we have the Tempest, and you might be like, well, this is from, you know, Transit Town, you know, but really it's not. Even though it is like the Avogadro, and you can argue that it is sort of a remaster, it is definitely something different. I mean, an Outbreak, these things can literally shut down your car, just turn it off, and you have to run and walk. They have a really insane amount of range, and this is one of the bosses in COD Zombies just in general that actually runs away from you. It's not always in your face. It's gonna be trying to sniping you. If you think of it like that, it's more so like that. He can do some other things, but mainly these are the main three things that this boss does alone. It is definitely something different. It can be very irritating, especially in Outbreak when they're jumping around, but these things are definitely something different, and I really enjoy them, even though they kind of get on my nerves quite a bit. Even though they are really irritating, they do bring something different to the table that the other COD games didn't, you know, with rehashing and just remaking over and over. But yeah, Tempest, pretty cool boss, really enjoy them. Now we have the Krasny soldat, and you might be wondering as well, this is also somewhat of a remaster, but my reasons for this is that even though the model of the actual zombie itself is relative to the same, it does act a little bit differently from Black Ops 2 and also Black Ops 3. He has a flamethrower, which is the same, but he also has a flaming bomb thing that can kill you really quickly if you don't know what you're doing and you don't know how to bob and weave out of the way. He is fairly strong as well. He has armor plates, and also if you don't know how to take them out with the right ammo mods or with Deadshot Daiquiri, you know, it's pretty easy. But he has fairly a lot of critical spots if you know how to kill him. Very strong boss. Once again, I mean, this thing has a lot of health, especially compared to all the other bosses in Cold War Zombies. This is the one that does have a lot, and definitely, I wouldn't say he's unique, but he's definitely a lot better than some of the older bosses. Now, the Disciple is definitely the most unique boss within Cold War Zombies, and in general it has to be in the top 3, at least for me. Now I know you might be wondering, how is this a unique boss? Why is it different from some of the others? Overall, this boss is something we haven't seen before, and one I've wanted to see for a very long time. He is definitely something that is very different. I mean, we haven't seen anything like this, not even the model, not even the type of attack, anything like that. This thing is brand stinking new, and it is amazing. Now, he does make this a lot more different than other games. This is why, and personally, this is what brings home the fact that Cold War has the best bosses, hands down. I mean, this thing, it is a very average, but carefully, you have to be careful with this boss. I mean, he has very low health, which is really nice. Even on those higher rounds, he does have increased armor when you do go on the higher rounds. But what makes him more different than the others, and why I think he definitely makes this, you know, the top reason why, you know, Cold War has the best bosses, is because of his attacks and his methods of attack. Now, you might be thinking, what is a method attack and how is it different from his, you know, ability to attack? Now, he has an ability to obviously, you know, charge and life suck you, which is really cool. I mean, something we haven't seen before. All the other attacks have been just straight up, you know, they'll shoot at you, range, hit you, any of that. But this is the one that actually makes it to where they suck the life out of you, and they have to be in relative close range, which is something we haven't seen before. And also, he can transform zombies to make them obey under him, which is really nice, and something we haven't seen before. I mean, we've had Brain Rot and Turned that kind of act like that, but in retrospective, these are not actual things that boss zombies do. It's rather than the player. These are really cool, and these are my reasons why this has got to be the best game for bosses, at least in my opinion. I think Cold War has brought a lot of bosses to the table, but unfortunately, because the game's a little lackluster, people don't really think about it. But hey, gamers, if you haven't already, leave a like, subscribe, all that cool nonsense, and check out the links in the description and all that. But on that, gamers, I'll see you guys next one. Have a wonderful day. See ya.
Your hands are cold. Your movements, they're lifeless.